To do a quick review of these scriptures, we start with the first reading. First line of the first reading says, "There is no God beside you." To put it in modern language, you're huge, God. You're big. You're the bomb. That's our God. This is the bomb. And we go right into the second reading, and this is what it says. Our spirit doesn't even know how to pray. We can't find the words, so the Spirit comes into ours, and it just groans. So we come to prayer, and we're just like this. We don't even know what to say to God, but somehow God will pull that out of us. And then the gospel is a continuation of last week's gospel about fields and seeds and plantings and harvesting and growth. But this one is a little different. First of all, we have 3 parables in the gospel. The second parable is the familiar one about the mustard seed, and the gospel says this is a parable about the kingdom. The kingdom is like this. It's like a tiny mustard seed, the tiniest of all seeds. You put it in the ground, and then it grows into the biggest bush of all, a tree in which the birds of the air come and nest. And then Jesus gives a third parable, and this one he says it's like women who've got all this dough, and they put a little yeast in it, and then the dough rises and becomes big. That's what the kingdom of God is like. And I would say those 2 parables are very idealistic. So it's kind of looking like at the choir here. I don't mean the choir, literally the choir, the church people who come, the 23% who are faithful about coming to church. You know, you're the good yeast. You're the mustard seed. And it's kind of ideal to think that the Word of God comes and we receive it and then all the good grows. But it's not exactly correct. And thank you, Matthew, because Matthew's the only one who wrote this first parable. It isn't in Mark or Luke. Matthew tells this other parable. He says, the kingdom of God is like this. A man goes out and sows seeds of wheat in his field. And then he goes to bed. And then his enemy comes and sows weeds in the field. Nobody knows. And then they start growing, and then sometime later, as they start growing up, the servants, the slaves, find the weeds in the wheat. And they come to the master and say, "What's going on here? There's weeds in the field. Did you sow weeds?" And he says, "An enemy has done this." So they say to the master, "Should we go out and rip out the weeds?" He says, No. It's too early. If you rip out the weeds, you may pull out the wheat. So let them grow together, and then one day when they're all grown, we can identify easily what are wheat, what are weeds. We'll rip out the weeds and we'll burn them. And that's what the kingdom is like. Because the weeds, there are weeds here, and we're going to rip them out, and the devil's going to come and get you. Now let me clear some stuff up. I was in South Central for years, and in the black community, they love to say this. They love to say, "Father, the devil made me do it. The devil made me do it." And I'd always say, don't blame the poor devil. You chose it. Don't say the devil made you do it. You chose it. Take responsibility. And I want you to know, Jesus never was preaching about the end of the world, even when he used the words. So he says today that at the end of time, all the evil will be there, and the devil will be among that, and then the devil will take the evil people away, and God will separate them. The reason he used this language, it's common language in biblical terms, was to tell people that what we are doing right now will grow. If there's evil, evil will grow. And he speaks about the end of time when it's fully grown and then has to be burned out, because he wants us to bring that message back to the present and say, "Oh my God, so what do I need to do? I need to change. I need to realign, recommit. I need to convert." So even his language about the end times was really to bring us back to the present, because this is all we got, really. You know, I'm 67, and I like to think I'll live to be maybe 80, maybe, if I'm lucky. But I might not live past tomorrow. So why am I going to plan for 80 if I don't even know if I'll be alive tomorrow? So get real, Perry. Live today to the best I can. So, Jesus says, the weeds and the wheat will grow together. They'll grow up. And what you have to get is a discerning eye that you can tell which ones are weeds and which ones are wheat. Therefore, I promised you last week, and I have it today, if the basket could come forward. Oh, no, wait just a moment. Let me just make one more connection here. The weeds and the wheat. I'm reading an excellent book. I'm hooked on it. I think it's called The Book Thief. It was on the bestseller list for 10 years. It's amazing. What beautiful writing. It's about the Holocaust era. And being a German-American, descendant of Germans, I've always had a very sensitive, awful awareness of the Holocaust. And I think to myself, what would it have been like to be a Jew in the Holocaust, to be in a town and see the train go through filled with people and you know they're not coming back? Talk about weeds and wheat. You know, Hitler was a Catholic, born and baptized a Catholic. He didn't stay very long. But there were a lot of Catholics who remained Catholics and went to church and received communion who hated the Jews and were behind Hitler fully. Imagine that, weeds and wheat. That's pretty clear. We're a nation built on slavery. Our ancestors bought people from Africa. They bought them. And then they sold them. They split families apart. So here's a family of 4 beautiful black children, and they said, well, we can make more money if we sell those to those and those to those. Split up families didn't care. And these were Catholics too. People of faith. How could there be weeds and wheat so clear? Think of the civil rights era. I was 15 at the time, I think, a teenager. I didn't get it very well then. I wasn't very astute politically. But here we were, and if you were white like me, maybe that's why, had all the privilege. But if you were black, brown, yellow, whatever, the colors we used, you knew you didn't have the same rights. Weeds and wheat growing together. It's all around us. But I'll tell you one that's real scary. And it's affecting us all, the youth in particular, and we don't even know it. And you're probably not going to like it and tell me, why do you bring this stuff up, Father Perry? Well, because it's so important. We live in an age of consumerism. Our lives are built on consuming. It's in the very structure. We hear it every day. All advertising is about consuming. I think it's the biggest industry there is, advertising. Do you know how much it costs if you want to rent 1 minute of space time on television during the Super Bowl? Anyone tell me how much? Anyone know how much? How many millions? 5 million? Can you imagine? You can, for 5 million, talk for 1 minute on television during the Super Bowl. That's crazy. And most everything that is made to break down. It's made to break down. So I have an iPhone 6. I've had it for a while. There's already iPhone 7 and iPhone 8 is in the making. The moment you buy a gadget, the moment you buy a car, it's obsolete. You know, when you drive it off the lot, 1 block, 1 foot, it already loses thousands of dollars. So things are built to break down, so you have to buy new ones. This is very intelligent people who are behind this. So I have my i6. Now, if I take very good care of it and it lasts for 10 years, it won't even function with all of the possible programs. It won't have enough memory. It won't have enough juice. It won't have enough something. So I have to eventually buy an i7 and an i8 and a 9 and an i10. I have a Toyota. I love my Toyota. When I was in my last parish, I had an SUV for 7 years. I kept it because it was so good. Now, there's a policy in the Archdiocese. This is the rule. Any priest is able and enabled to get a new car every 4 years or 80,000 miles, whichever comes first. But I kept my SUV for 7 years because I had hip replacements. I couldn't get in a little car. It was perfect. It ran nicely. But at about 97,000 miles, started acting up. So I go to our, not dealer, because, sorry if anyone works for a dealer, they charge you like up the kazoo. But this good mechanic, real honest guy, and I said, I think the transmission's slipping. He says, yeah, it is. He said, it'll be good for a couple thousand miles. 100,000, it'll go out. I said, what are you saying? What are you saying? He said, this car's built for 100,000 miles. At 100,000, it starts to break down like serious stuff. You watch. And he was right. So I had to get a new car. So I get this Toyota. 134,000 miles. It still drives beautifully. It's convertible. I love it. 10 years old, and I'll drive it till it drops. And it's not made to drop at 100,000. But most things are built to become obsolete or to die. They have a date of death when you buy it. Consumerism. Now, this weeds and wheat is a lot harder to see because everything is shiny and pretty. So the weeds and wheat grow up together here, and we don't even identify them. We don't even know how we're being used, how we've been bought. But that's the reality. So we're asked as Christians, as Catholics, to get a new set of eyes where we can see the weeds and the wheat. Become aware, discern. I'll confess a sin to you. I bought, because they were on sale, these styrofoam plate things because if I have a little gathering or whatever and I have leftover food, I don't like all that food to stay, so I want to give it away. So I put in these and they clamp shut. But these don't decompose very well. They mess up the earth. I slapped my hand. I said, never again will I buy that. I have to buy something that will disintegrate easily so that we're protecting the earth. So not just them, but their great-grandchildren have a better earth than we have. And we're not doing very well with our earth. But I have to think of what's best, not what's cheapest. So, how do we get these discerning eyes? Now, the basket. Now, the basket, girls, the basket. I promised you last week I'm going to pass out these cards. Here's the problem I've got. I've already given away 1,000 in English, almost, and I have very few English left. So I feel bad, but I'll have them next week, more of them. And Noel is going to take the Spanish. So if you can read Spanish comfortably, I'd like you to raise your hand, and Noel will give you one of these cards if you like one, okay? And you're going to start in the back. I want to make sure the young people have them. Are you going to be here next weekend? Girls, come here. Right? These people need one real fast. All right. And the rest, anyone who's here next weekend, I'll give you in English. And Noel is in Spanish. Make sure you grab him if you want one in Spanish. All right? Now, what this is a process of prayer. It says the prayer process, but it's a prayer process. There's many processes. What it isn't is a prayer. Now, our own patron, Bernard, wrote a lot of prayers. One of the most famous is the Memorare. The Memorare. It's a beautiful prayer. And when we say prayers, we're saying the prayers that someone else wrote. Even Jesus, he didn't write it, but he taught us one. Our Father who art in heaven, blah, 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 blah. Those are the words of Jesus. We say it, it's beautiful. We say the Memorare, it's beautiful. But when you say other people's prayers, even though they may make you feel good and they're beautiful, they inspire, they're not your own words. Now imagine, can I use you as an example? Let's say she's my girlfriend, okay? We're both the same age. I'm just a little punk kid. And I fall in love with this girl, so I want to tell her how much I love her. So I say, girlfriend, I want to tell you how much I love you. So I say, but just a second. I go get this book off my shelf. Beautiful Words to the People You Love, it's called. So I say, 1 second. I think it's page 24. Oh, no, it's 25. And it has a little blank space for the name. I say, what's your first name? Jean? Jean? And then I read, I love you more than all the stars in the heavens and the beautiful brook that falls over the stones. And I love you. And I'm reading these words in a book. And she says, well, they're pretty, but what's in your heart? Well, I'm telling you, these words that someone else wrote. How crazy is that? Even if I stumble and say, Jean, I love you so much. I can't even find the words. I'm so stupid, but I just love you. She knows that's coming from my own heart. So when we talk to God, we want to pick up a book. Remember, we start reading these prayers, and they're beautiful. I'm not knocking them. But we got to do something more than that. Pray from the heart. So, this wonderful process that Matthew Kelly put together, it's in one of his books. He calls it the prayer process. Told you about it last week. And this is my challenge. I promised you this, and I'll repeat it next week for the ones who get the card next week. I'm asking if everybody who takes one would be willing to commit 5 minutes a day. Every 24 hours, you'll do 5 minutes to reflect on your last 24 hours. Okay? Just 5 minutes. Now, if you're daring, go for 10. But I don't want to push that. Just at least 5. And if you're daring, 10. And there's 7 steps. The last step is pray the Our Father, just to conclude it with Jesus' prayer. The first one is just start with some gratitude. Your own words. You say, God, I'm just so grateful to be alive. I walked into church. I'll walk out. I can see. I can eat and smell. I hear. I've got friends around me. I'm really grateful, God. And thank you for all that. And the second one is to talk about your awareness. When have I been my best, the wheat? And when have I been my worst, the weeds? So this morning on the way, anybody here, brother and sister? Any brothers and sisters here? Oh, you too? Okay, so on the way over, Dad gave him a nice candy bar, and it's your favorite kind. You say, oh, can I have a bite? No, it's mine. That's what you call a weed. W-E-E-D. That's not your best self. But if he said instead, here, a bite, here, have half. Oh, thank you. That's wheat. And we all have that in our life. Last 24 hours, we should be able to find all kinds of weeds in wheat. And it's nice to become aware of that and talk to God about it. Say, God, I wasn't my best for a few times. A little ashamed, but whatever, here. And then the significant moments. You heard your mom or dad on the phone and they said, what? You what? And you say, oh, something's wrong. And then way over in the car, you hear him saying, your Uncle Joe, he lost the house. Your Aunt Mary, she's got cancer. These are significant moments, and when we become aware of them, don't we want to talk to God about them? God, this is awful. My family's hurting. What do I do, God? How do I respond? Then we move to that place aware of all this stuff, and we say, God, it's time. I need to ask for some forgiveness for some stuff in my life in the last 24 hours. I know I need to ask for some forgiveness to move on. And I ask for your peace. And then in the 5th step, he titles it Freedom. Speak with God about how he's inviting you to become more. Now, how can you possibly know how God is inviting you unless you ask him, how are you inviting me, God? Don't tell God what you need. Say, God, what do you think I need? Don't tell God what you want to do with your life. Say, God, what do you think I should do with my life? Don't tell God who you think you should say you're sorry to. You ask God, are there some people I need to apologize to? What do you think? Because the moment you ask the question, you open your spirit, a place in you where there's listening going on now. You didn't state the problem, you asked. And you wait for something to come up inside you. It really works. And then last, before you pray to our Father, in this 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you're daring, but at least 5 minutes, you say, God, I want to pray for a few other people. So you pray for a friend. You pray for an enemy. You pray for peace in the world. You pray for the sick. You pray for people in jail. You pray for people with AIDS. You pray for specific people that you know could use prayer, and you just want to lift them up deep in your spirit a little bit. So 5 minutes every 24 hours, 10 minutes if you're daring. And I guarantee you, I'll put $100 on it just for the people of this mess. $100. If I do this all 5 masses, I'm in for $500. I say those who do it will be changed. How can you not be? How can you not be changed if you stand, sit, lie down before God and talk about your life? Open up your spirit. Let him in. Welcome him in to what's going on. How can you not be changed? Matthew Kelly loves to say, if you can get 1% of your parish each year to do this, you would begin to see rapidly a complete change of the parish, and I believe it. I believe it. So next week I'll get another 1,000 cards. I'm delighted that we ran out. I'm delighted. This is a good sign. This is hope. This is the planting of wheat with a T. And if the majority of the parish could spend 5 minutes, 10 if you're daring, every 24 hours to look at the last 24 hours and talk it over with God. Let him in. I'm pretty sure what we heard last week will be fulfilled. that we would find fruitfulness happening at 30, 60, 100-fold.